Hey, what's up guys, it's Justin here, and today I've got the full review of the Samsung Galaxy S5. So I've had more than 2 weeks with this device now, and I feel that I'm finally ready to bring you my thoughts. The S4 being a very successful phone for Samsung last year, the S5 is its effort to repeat that once again in 2014 with their newest flagship. And I'm sure a lot of people will agree that this device, in terms of its general design, does stay reminiscent of its predecessor, the Samsung Galaxy S4. There are obviously changes made aesthetically and internally, in order to make this obviously an upgrade from its predecessor, even if it is considered more of an S iteration instead of a complete overhaul. So starting out with the specs of this device, of course from a flagship you would expect a lot. It features a Snapdragon 801 processor clocked in at 2.5 GHz, that is quad core of course, as well as 2 GB of RAM. So obviously you shouldn't expect any problems in terms of the performance sector. And onto the design, you could tell that Samsung is stuck with a plastic back, which some may enjoy and others may absolutely hate and instead prefer a metal construction as seen on the HTC M8 or the iPhone 5S. One thing they have improved though is instead of going with the slimy, shiny plastic back as seen on the S4, they have moved on to a perforated texture, which again, some people may enjoy the look of it and others may absolutely hate it. But in my opinion, I felt that it was a change for the better as it overall gave you a much better grip of your device. And it is currently available in white, black, blue, and Band-Aid gold, and also expect more to come in the future. The device I think feels really nice in the hand, very thin and light. It weighs in at just 145 grams and 8.1 millimeters thick. Of course, on the bottom of the device you have your physical home button as well as your capacitive touch back and recent apps button, instead of the menu button that we saw before. On the bottom you got your micro USB port, but in fact this is compatible with USB 3.0 like we first saw on the Galaxy Note 3. You may also notice a port cover, which some people may find is an absolute nuisance, but it actually does serve a purpose. As you may know, this device is IP67 rated, which is claimed to be water and dust resistant. And if you look into the details of the IP67 rating, this device is certified to go underwater at a depth of up to 1 meter for 30 minutes. And just showing you guys, by running it under the tap, the device has no problem at all. On the top, of course, you have your headphone jack as well as your IR blaster, and you also have your power button located on the right side of the device and your volume rockers located on the left, which I feel is located very naturally and just where I'd like it. And on the bottom left of the device, you will find your speakers, which I'm sure you would agree are very small and very easy to cover up when holding your device. On the S5, perhaps one of the advantages of the plastic back, like we see across the Galaxy line, whether it is the Note, the S4, the S3, and the S2, is the fact that you are able to very easily remove the back plate, allowing you to access things like your battery, your micro SD card slot, as well as your micro SIM card slot, which enables you to not have to carry a SIM card eject tool, for example, and also swap out the battery if you happen to have a spare one. Another new feature seen in the S5 is its heart rate sensor, which Samsung really encourages you to use with its S Health. It's located right below the camera and it allows you to simply place your finger on the sensor and it will read your heart rate within a matter of seconds. And although this will be a great feature for some who decide to use it, it was kind of deemed a gimmick by MacMixing, as by using third-party apps you were able to use your camera on any phone and still get a very similar reading. However, one advantage to having a dedicated heart rate sensor, or I guess a mini camera on the S5, is if you're constantly wanting to check your heart rate, you won't be smudging your camera every time by placing your finger on it. But nonetheless, I guess it works and it still brought up a reading, but whether or not it is accurate, that is not really for me to find out, as I am no doctor. Additionally, you also have a fingerprint sensor implemented now, which allows you to unlock your device and also sign into Samsung accounts, all by just sliding your finger down the lower portion of the screen through to your home button. Moving on to the display, the S5 features a full HD 1920 by 1080 resolution Super AMOLED display with a pixel density of 430 ppi. The display itself is very crisp and sharp as you'd expect out of the screen resolution, and the colors and everything just jump out to you very nicely, and that is to be expected from Samsung with the Super AMOLED display. In fact, it was dubbed by a testing firm, DisplayMate, the best performing smartphone display they have ever tested. And although some would argue that the display is a little bit oversaturated and everything, it really brings for a very enjoyable experience when you're watching movies or playing games, for example. But that really comes down to whether you prefer more exaggerated or vibrant colors, or if you'd rather just want a more accurate color representation on a display. Moving on to the software, of course this device ships with Android 4.4 KitKat and the TouchWiz user interface from Samsung. However, it would be interesting to see if Samsung teams up with Google once again to release a Google Play edition of the device like we saw with the S4 and the HTC One M8 already. So now I'm going to walk you guys through the interface and what you should expect out of TouchWiz. So the first thing we're going to look at is the My Magazine, which is located to the left of your home screen, and it allows you to customize your different news feed. It is powered by Flipboard, and by tapping on your topics, it brings you to a Flipboard layout directly from your home screen. And of course, you have these settings to select the different content you may want to see, as well as different social network platforms. So as you'd expect, everything is extremely snappy, and coming from an S4, I will tell you that for the most part, a lot of the things stay the same, if not extremely similar, and there are a few different visual changes along the way. Moving on to our app drawer, you can see that all of your apps, of course, are laid out as you'd expect, and on the top right corner, the 3 dots will take you to some of the options that you have for your app drawer in terms of the disabling apps, hide apps, sorting, view different apps, and also create different folders. Moving on, we have our notification dropdown, which is pretty much as you would expect out of TouchWiz. The quick toggle settings located along the top, allowing you to also add or remove different settings depending on your preference. You also have your brightness slider there, and also quick access to S-Voice and Quick Connect. And you could tell from the settings interface they have changed it up quite a bit in terms of the visual aspect. Now with a much more colorful and cleaned up layout in these settings, and in general I have to say I really like the things that they have done in terms of the visual aspect of these settings. And at first it may take some getting used to in terms of finding your way around, but you can also very easily search up what you need on the top and access that right away. And I also want to mention that I don't think the keyboard on the Samsung is the prettiest, but it is definitely very functional. I found myself having a very nice experience typing on that, and I also like the fact that the numbers are located on the top. Moving on to our recent apps button, of course it brings up your recent apps, no surprise there. You can also show up how much RAM you have used up, and also easily close all of your apps at once. That is pretty much the same as we have seen before. Holding on the back button, that is your multitasking, but first I'm going to show you the home button, and that will take you to Google Now from wherever you are by holding on it for a few seconds. By tapping on it twice, it will take you to S-Voice, but personally, as you can tell, I haven't been using that at all. And by holding on your back button for a few seconds, that will take you to your multitasking menu, and for those who don't know, it allows you to run more than one application at once on your screen. So in my case, I'm going to drag the music app on the top and have the gallery on the bottom. And it allows you to get more things done, or just pretty much multitask going by its name. It allows you to also resize the menus or windows very easily, and it's very snappy, really no problems with that, and it is something that I definitely use occasionally. And of course with Samsung you have quite a few other smart features implemented with the phone as well, such as Smart Pause and Smart Scroll. But in general I still feel that TouchWiz is a little bit heavy in terms of its skin for my liking. And as you'd expect out of the top end specs and performance of this device, you're able to play games no problem, even the most graphic intensive ones currently on the Google Play Store, and everyday tasks and everything were just very fluid, and I really experienced no problem in that category. So this phone is definitely a performer. And like I also mentioned about the Super AMOLED display having very nice and what some would say exaggerated colors, it makes for a very nice gaming experience, or for media consumption in general as a whole. So now moving on to the camera, and this is definitely a huge strong point for this device. I was extremely excited to test this out when I heard about the upgraded specs and features added to the camera. It features a 16 megapixel camera on the back capable of recording 4K video, and also a 2 megapixel front facing camera on the front. Samsung also claims that due to its phase detection technology, this camera is able to autofocus in just 0.3 seconds. Showing you guys around the camera app, of course on the left side you have some of your quick toggle settings, including switching between your front and back facing camera. That is stationary. However, below that you have the option to drag over some of your favorite or most used quick toggle settings over there for easy access. Moving on to the settings, they've laid it out in a grid layout, and that is something I really like and makes it very easy to access all the things you may want, turn them on and off, and I think they've really cleaned it up in that category. If you may remember from the Samsung Galaxy S4, there was just so many modes within the camera, all of which I pretty much lost track of as there was just that many. This time though, you have your auto, beauty face, shot and more, panorama, virtual, and dual camera, and you can download the additional ones if you choose to. So now let's show you guys some of the settings and options they give you in terms of editing your photo after you take the actual image. So you have some of your quick settings along there, but in terms of actually tweaking the image in terms of the color contrast, filters, exposure, effects, and stuff like that, they give you quite a few options there. So of course you have your rotate, crop. You can also change the contrast, saturation, and different colors, the RGB. You can also add different effects, vignette, vintage, different filters to that. And in terms of portraits, you also have a few options there, and you also have some options in terms of decorating your picture, whether it is putting stickers, labels, or drawing on it, or you can just go with the simple auto enhance. So it definitely has all you need there. So now taking a look at some of the pictures taken using the S5, I have to say that this is among one of the best cameras I've seen on a smartphone today, at least from what I've tested in regular lighting conditions. And although a lot of people will argue that megapixels aren't everything, which is totally true in many cases, I will say that this definitely did a very good job in capturing every last detail, and if you decide to ever crop your images, for example, it is still able to retain that great detail and is really nice if you decide to print out some of your images in full size. And when it came to the video, the phone handled it just as well, and like I said, it does record 4K video, and that is something I used quite a bit on my Note 3 before. And as you can see, the colors and everything look very nice, the sharpness is definitely there, and especially when recording in 4K, the SD card slot expandability of up to 120 gigs definitely comes in handy, especially for those who decide to record in 4K for longer periods of time. So now moving on to the battery life, the Samsung Galaxy S5 features a 2800 mAh battery, a jump from its 2600 mAh battery seen on the predecessor. But I'm glad to say that it is really noticeably improved and that the battery on the S5 is very good, and I have no problems with it so far. And I found myself able to get through a day, if not a day and a half of usage, no problem. Another thing to note is that with the USB 3.0 compatibility and in some variants the 3.0 cable being included, by using that you are able to get some faster syncing and charging speeds. And another great feature implemented is the ultra power saving mode. So in critical times, perhaps you have 5-10% battery. In my case I have 70 here, but if you have 10% battery for example and you don't have access to any chargers for a while, this allows you to absolutely maximize the battery usage of the device while still being able to access some critical applications that you may want to use. It pretty much disables all the things that would normally restrain your battery life. So let's just take a look at the interface here. It takes you to a whole new menu, and it is grayscale, and you can see there it has most of the critical things that you would most likely want to access in critical times when you have no battery, such as your phone, messages, email, internet, possibly Facebook or Twitter. And as you can see on the bottom, it will show your remaining battery percentage as well as the estimated time you still have while running the ultra power saving mode. And obviously in ultra power saving mode, the options are extremely limited, but it still allows you to access all the critical things, and I think that is a very handy mode and something I would probably find myself using quite often. And of course, with your removable back, you have access to your battery, and I'm sure a lot of people will be purchasing spare ones in order to swap them out very easily at any given time of the day. But that is about it for my review of the Samsung Galaxy S5, and I'll conclude by saying that I in general had a very nice experience with the device, despite what other people have said. I feel that the IP67 is definitely a huge plus, as well as the upgraded camera, which I think looks really nice, as well as some of the design and functional changes that Samsung has made along the way to make this a worthy upgrade from the Samsung Galaxy S4. But really one of the bigger things I still have to complain about is TouchWiz, which I'm personally just not a huge fan of, and I definitely look forward to hopefully seeing a Google Play edition of this device. But aside from that, I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and be sure to hit that like button if you did, and subscribe for some future coverage, and I'll see you all in the next video.